Everybody. We are back for another cold calling live. I guess that's what we call it here. Although this is not cold calling live, it's more about preparing for live cold calling. And today I got a very special guest. I think I've shared this in the past. I'll share it again publicly with everybody. There's only a few folks in the industry that I um, really stand behind when it comes to their approach and focus to cold calling. We brought a few on in the past, and today we got another one. Mr. Jason Bay, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, man. It's always fun jamming with you. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
like talking to like you're like the mad scientist of cold calling. I feel like.
Well, I do focus on the data. I'm very
Yep.
data driven, and I use that to drive my decisions where a lot of other folks tend to be a little bit more subjective. And
Yeah.
what these sessions are about, what I'm excited about bringing you on today, is that there's lots of different ways to approach outbound. Everybody has their own best practices and approaches, and of course, what I like to do is learn about them and bring them to the world. I try them all myself, and as I've said over and over and over on this live show, that it's about trying to find something that you're confident with, and then being consistent over time. And when you have that consistency and confidence, you can then start to get the data we're talking about to inform, hey, is this working or not? And is it me or is it the approach? And without that consistency and confidence, we're kind of out there scrambling. And so today, for today's show, for those that are tuning in, we got kind of three sections. First of all, if you're tuning in live, let us know where you're coming in from. Looks like we have some folks coming from Poland and Stockholm and Greenland and Seattle and Cape Town, South Africa. Look at all those continents even being represented. Here we go. Let us know where you're calling in from, or coming in from. And today we got Jason's going to share a little bit about his approach to the top of the funnel, specifically cold calling. All of you that are in here are going to love his ideas around some unique ways to open a conversation as well as that transition statement. So he has a really great approach that's a little bit different than what we've shared before. So take out your pens and pencils, write those down. You're going to want to take your notes today. And then we're going to bring on some guests as always to get some pitch feedback. So if anyone wants to be a victim, a volunteer to some feedback, we got Jason here to kind of hear your approach to a cold call and get some live coaching. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have questions throughout the show, make sure to chat them. Tim will capture those, and we'll leave the second part, the last part of the show today, to try to answer those live for y'all. So without further ado, Jason, for those that don't know you, first of all, who is Jason Bay?
Yeah. It's a deep question. We could take that in a lot of angles. But the part that people actually want to hear, I run a company called Outbound Squad, where we have a mission to help sales reps and sales teams turn complete strangers into paying customers. So my entire career, starting from 19 years old, running a house painting business and having to go door to door, to sell those, to working in call centers and running and building call centers, to now in the last 6 or 7 years, more specifically tech. I love helping people with outbound. It's one of the things that I think a lot of reps were tasked to do this thing and not really given much more direction than, hey, maybe here's a script or a couple email templates, like get after it, dude, kind of thing. So what I really want to help folks do is, relieve some of the anxiety that we have around this. And you used the word confidence earlier, which I really like that word. I think having a very simple process with a few steps, like there's confidence that is gained from just
Yeah.
going into the gym, so to speak, and knowing what the
Yeah.
workout routine is going to be. So that's what I really love to help reps with.
Amazing. And as you heard here, Jason has the real cold calling experience. For those of you who don't understand what cold calling used to be, it is the door knocking. You talk to some old
Yeah.
schoolers, when you say cold calling, they think cold calling is door knocking, all the way up to the inside sales call center experience, which is very different than some of the modern SDR world, right?
Yeah.
You're not given a lot of the freedom and flexibility that we hear today. And now he's working with lots of organizations, individuals and teams. Is that right, Jason? Your program is for teams and individuals.
Yep. Yeah. So I work with sales teams at, companies like Gong or a Medallia, and then all the way, down to individual reps working at SMBs, doing enterprise and kind of everywhere in between. And the the approach and the mindset sort of behind this is that I work with individuals and companies that believe in being proactive about filling their pipeline. And I think as we start to head into a recession, at least here in the United States, I don't know what the the rest of the world's looking like. The ability to proactively fill your pipeline, whether you're an SDR, obviously that's a job that you're being tasked to do full time, but account executives too. I mean, there's a lot of really great data around there around just what percentage of pipeline should you be self-sourcing if you want to hit and surpass your quota. And it's depending on where you look, somewhere between 25 and 40%. This outbound skill and being able to over the phone be able to convert more than 3 or 5% of people you talk to into a qualified meeting is really where it's at. You know, I mean, you're all about helping people, you know, with your phone ready leads, get more people to pick up the calls. And it's also a game as an account executive or any other full cycle sales rep, with the limited number of conversations you are going to have, how can I convert more of them, you know, into meetings, or at least not lose ones that you lost because you didn't run an effective call. So that's what we're going to dig into today. But I think it's just super, super important right now to be on top of like the skill part. How can we go from 3 to 5% of our live conversations converting into a meeting to upwards of 30, 40%? Which is totally possible if you're going after good fit prospects and you have a really good message.
I love that. And that's where we align so well. Target, message, channel, timing, right?
Yep.
And the first two things that you just hit on, right? Are you targeting the right people? Are you saying the right things? And today, and this whole show is around, okay, let's assume that we're all pretty good at getting a list together. We know that whether we're an SDR or an AE that's responsible for proactively filling our pipelines, we've got some folks that we want to talk to. Now, what do we say? And man, if you think 3 to 5% is okay, and Jason's saying it's possible to get to potentially 30%, what would that do? That's huge, right? That at 5%, that's 1 out of 20 conversations. At 30%, that's 1 out of 3. You know, and if some of you are struggling to even get that conversation, that's the difference between a couple meetings a week versus a couple meetings a month, if you're lucky. And so let's double click into there, Jason, because you've got two things that I think are really exciting. One is the way that you are talking and teaching about just starting that conversation, right? So we do all this work and we get limited number of connects, and maybe those fall off before we even get to our pitch. And so you have an approach there. And then the second part of Jason's conversation today is going to be, okay, we've gotten past hello. What do we do next? How do we actually effectively communicate the reason for the conversation? And so I'm not sure which one you want to start with here, Jason, but can you walk us through your approaches here today?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you get to prompt the audience with a question, is it okay if I mention other like data from other vendors, not competing with Cognism necessarily, like a chorus? Is that okay to talk about?
I have no
Okay.
problem with data, and I don't think Cognism does either. They're very
Okay, I don't want to get you in trouble, dude. Chorus AI, conversational intelligence software, they have some really good data on the average length of a cold call. Let me know in the chat, what do you guys think the average length is of the tens of thousands of cold calls that people have made through their system and the data? Let me know in the chat, how many seconds do you think the average cold call lasts? And we'll see what the kind of range is. Charles says 5. That's brutal, dude.
We're going to need to get you on here, Charles. 25, 30.
Yeah, so kind of all over the place. So they took the average length of the recording, and it was about 80 seconds. So that's including the dial time, right? So we could assume it's somewhere probably around 45, 50 seconds. And where people tend to get shut down is in that very like prospect picked up, oh shoot, what do I say? Like that little back and forth right there. That's where the cold call is really like you either bought yourself some time or you got immediately shut down. That's where most people run into trouble. So in that first little part, I break up the call into an intro, is the first part, that first 60 seconds. There's a hook in the middle, and then there's a close at the end. We're going to probably spend a lot of our time on that intro piece because it's really important. So in the intro, my goal is to make an entrance. So just like entering a party or anything like that, or an event, or going over to a small group get together, whatever it might be, I want to make a really good first impression. So a way that we can kind of think about this is I always want to reverse engineer. Let me ask you, Ryan, do you ever pick up cold calls on purpose?
When I can, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you can, you might be one of those rare exceptions of people because you're probably like me and you're kind of fascinated with what other people might say and you respect the
Exactly.
craft and all the other stuff.
Yep.
I think we could agree. Let me know if anyone here in the chat disagrees that your prospect probably didn't pick up the call on purpose, thinking it was a salesperson, and then like they were really eager to hear what you said.
That's right.
Probably Annette agrees. Tom says true. So since they didn't pick up the call on purpose, we have to immediately add context to the conversation and differentiate from what the typical experience might be like. So if we think about who is going to be calling these people, most of the time people pick up an unknown number because they think it's an emergency, someone at their school, a kid's school. They might think it's an internal thing. There's all kinds of stuff going on. I want to immediately add context to my intro, and I'm going to do three things. They don't necessarily have to be in this order. I want to gain permission. So some sort of permission-based opener, introduce myself, gain permission. I want to add something relevant to the conversation. That relevance, I want to be about that individual or about that company. Show this person that I did my research. I called you on purpose. You weren't just on a big list I was dialing through. I called you on purpose. And then we're going to leverage what's called a priority drop. So a priority drop is sort of the reverse pitch. So again, if I'm going to reverse engineer this and think about what the user experience is like being on the receiving end of a cold call, most of the time people pick up and say, "Hey, Ryan, it's Jason with XYZ company. How's it going?" Yeah. Why are you calling? Well, hey, I work with I run a company called Outbound Squad, and we do sales training with other SaaS companies. We do like that's the typical experience of a cold call. It's like immediately get pitched. We want to be
The
the
pitch
opposite
slap.
of that.
It's a pitch slap.
The pitch slap. Yeah.
That's what it is.
So
Yeah.
the first thing that I would recommend is, especially when you're calling executives, the first sentence that comes out of your mouth, what you could do is work in that relevance piece that we talked about. So we talked about permission-based opener, relevance, priority drop. I'm going to drop in something that is relevant to that individual. So I'll give you an example. I work with a company that sells a customer experience solution to Fortune 1000 companies. A specific persona that they work with is customer support. These are people running huge contact centers. And what they care about is reducing cost to serve. So how do we decrease the amount of our employees' time and resources to serve each of our individual customers? So think of like a Comcast or an Xfinity, thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. How do we reduce the cost to serve? So in my research, I'm just looking for instances of them talking about stuff like that in their initiatives or something off their LinkedIn profile. And that might sound something like this. Hey, Ryan, I was giving you a call because I noticed that you guys have an initiative just from your Q3 2022 report around reducing cost to serve. Oh, by the way, this is Jason with XYZ company. You got a minute for me to tell you why I'm calling?
So
So I'm
you
going
don't
to
even
open up with something
introduce
about that person.
you didn't even say your name. You're going right after in this case, the research you've done around an initiative that they care about.
Yep. And you could do that in reverse order if you like. So I think the order of this is not necessarily as important as getting this stuff out. But
Mm-hmm.
what I've noticed just in the last 6-9 months of working with reps and doing these myself is that most of the time executives are pretty impatient on the phone and they want to understand the reason for your call. And the reason for the call, I'm going to make about you. So think about what are the things that you find. It could be hiring, mergers, acquisitions. It could be that you saw on this LinkedIn's profile. In the case of these customer support personas, oftentimes they list out their accomplishments, how much money they've saved the company. You know what I mean? So any of that kind of stuff that you would normally personalize in a first line of an email, I just want you to open up with that in your call. Hey, Ryan, I was giving you a call because I noticed this or about this, or you listed out this priority. By the way, it's Jason with XYZ company. And then I go into the permission-based element. Do you mind if I take a minute to share the reason for my call? And you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. There's lots of variations of what you can do there, but we'll go ahead and pause there. Ryan, that's what I am a big fan of in that first 15 seconds of the call.
Well, and I think that it's really interesting that there's more and more data now to support this. A lot of times, if you look at different approaches to uh, how you enter a call and what do you say next, historically it's been based on how people feel. Now it's based on data. So the idea that the average conversation is only 80 seconds, including dial time, which is probably closer to 45 seconds, means that and we talked about this several times for those who've been here before. It's the pitch lab. Hey, this is Ryan, blah, 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 blah. You don't give a break. You just keep going. It sounds like an auctioneer, and it's blah, 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 right? Like they're just
Yeah.
waiting to say, no, thanks, click, versus finding a way to break up the pattern and begin a two-way dialogue. And what I like about what you're saying right now is the way your framework works is very in line with how Townsend Wardlaw's the art of cold calling. I love his framework too. Very different, but it's intentional. You're saying the same things, but with some psychology baked in, which is this is interruptive communication, right? This idea that someone's calling because they believe like they're ready to talk to you is false, right? It's interruptive communication. All the reasons you listed are likely why they picked up, not because they thought it was a salesperson they wanted to talk to you. And so, how do you get that relevance? Woodward calls it relevant clarity, and in this case, for you. It's gaining that relevance right off the gate in a unique way is really interesting. And I like the idea that you can tie it to initiative that it should trigger, right? Oh wow, this is different. Nobody has entered a conversation with some specific information that would likely be relevant for me. My question then here, Jason, becomes that this is primarily, and I'm guessing just based on your approach as well from the beginning, but this is a very targeted primarily towards the executives, right? Because those are the ones that are going to care more about some sort of public information about you know an initiative that was published on maybe their website or a newsletter or something like
Yep.
that, right? So do you actually prospect at all below the power line, or is your approach mostly to those folks that care the most?
Yeah, definitely. This is a great question. So, and I'll answer some of the questions in the chat too. People were asking, should you ask how the person's doing? So I'll get to answer that question too. If you're doing enterprise or strat or even large commercial type of sales motions, there's going to be a lot of information on these companies, right? So there's the amount of companies, the volume is like reduced. So I have more time. It makes more sense to spend that time to do that kind of stuff. Okay.
Hmm.
So below the line or on the line, so directors, for example, or someone that's ahead of something, yeah, they're totally worth calling. The way that I can add relevance to that conversation is more through the second part of the call. So maybe I'm just going to say, hey, Ryan, notice that you head up the sales development team at XYZ company. Oh, by the way, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. You got a minute for me to tell you the reason for my call? And I can go in from there. So call out a job title, something about them. It could be really, really simple. So those below the line folks, you're not going to spend a ton of time researching these people because that meeting is not as valuable to you as with a VP, let's say, or a senior
Hmm.
vice president of something. So the next part, the should I ask them how they're doing? I mean, Gong actually has a lot of data around the how have you been question.
Hmm.
So I just get a vibe. Like if the person sounds like they're someone that like when they say hello, what kind of mental state do they sound like they're in?
Yeah.
If it's like hello, you know, hey, this is Jason. If they sound really impatient, I'm just going to get to the point. If they sound like someone that's friendly or willing to talk and engage, then I'll do hey, Ryan, I was giving you a call about the initiative XYZ. By the way, it's Jason with XYZ company. How have you been? That question, there's a ton of data that supports asking that question. And this is a style and preference thing.
Yep.
How have you been? They tested variants of that against how are you doing? How's your day going? And they found that the how have you been is more like what a friend would ask. And if you can do it in that tone that I did just now too, the prospect is going to think for a second, do I know this person? Right. So I'm trying to get the prospect in this mode of I'm active listening now.
Right.
I'm not multitasking anymore. You caught me when I was doing email or doing something else. Like I am actively participating in this conversation.
I think that the permission based opener or just the intro component of it goes right back to this is about finding something that you're comfortable with and being more consistent versus like the actual phraseology, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, there's data that shows some of these things may work better than others. But at the end of the day, if you can't deliver it with confidence, your tonality's off, you're flat versus the way you're supposed to present in a conversational voice, nothing's going to matter. And so, when you're asking these types of questions, for me, I would say try it yourself and see if it lands. If it feels good, you're going to be a lot more successful than if it doesn't. If it doesn't feel natural, you're going to have a really hard time having that conversation. And to Jason's point, every individual is not the same either. So it can work for some people and it may not work for others. The real trick here is if you get shut down, this is a real trick on this 45-second. If you're getting shut down with whatever approach it is, then wait a couple days and call back with something different. And that's where
Yeah.
you're going to really see success, because that individual from time to time might even open up differently. They were flat one day and a little bit more friendly the next day. And so you just don't know.
Yeah.
That's the power of the follow up. So with the interest of time here, Jason, I wanted to transition into your concept of the priority drop. What is that?
Mhm.
You said it was like kind of reverse pitching. Can
Yeah.
you walk us through?
So
Can you walk us through what that means?
yeah. So we do permission-based opener, and Ryan says, "Yeah, go ahead. You got the floor. Why are you calling? What comes out of your mouth next?" Do not, I urge you to not pitch during this time, because you're basically, when you pitch, you're giving the opportunity, your prospect, the opportunity to decide whether or not they need your product or service. And a cold call is not the place for them to decide that. There's not enough information or context for them. So really what I want to do is get a gauge of what they're working on so that I can cater and tailor my value prop to something specific versus saying we do sales training, you know? So what I want to do here with the priority drop is I don't want to go in really heavy with we help people who are having these problems, because I don't know about you, Ryan. I don't really open up to people I don't know about all my business problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's not something that I
yeah,
open up about. So the priority drop is people are wanting to do these things, accomplish these things, but run into these things. So an example of that, we talked about the VPs of customer support, these folks running contact centers. So this is what it's going to sound like. So Ryan says, "Yeah, go ahead. What's the reason for your call?" Well, hey, Ryan, appreciate it. First off, in speaking with VPs of customer support at companies like Comcast and a few other utilities similar to yours, we typically hear a focus around two things. One is around reducing cost to serve. So figuring out ways to reduce call center volume and get customers to self-serve on the digital channels and PDFs that looks like you guys have on your website. Or two, it's more around agent attrition. So how do we get agents the tools, all of the stuff that they need to help customers and reduce first call resolution so they can do their job and feel good about what they're doing? I'm really curious, are either two of those remotely close to what you're focused on right now, or is it something else altogether? So I'm
yep,
going to be super specific. I'm going to think about, if you're an SDR or BDR, I'm going to think about when my account executive hops on that first call and goes through demo with a prospect, what are the big things that these people share that they're working on? Like, what are the overarching priorities, the things that are like a 2022, 2023 initiative? And then what's something that tends to get in the way of that? And if you're an account executive or a full cycle sales rep, use the stuff that you learn in the sales motion to inform your outbound messaging. So really think about it. And a question you should be asking in that sales call is, "Hey, Ryan, before we dig in today, if you don't mind sharing, what big goals or initiatives do you have over the next 6 to 12 months that are related to the conversation that we're going to have today, so I could make sure this is a good use of your time?" And we're going to write down word for word what these people say, or listen back to the call recordings or whatever it might be. But I want to incorporate those high level things. And this allows me to filter the conversation, because when we hopped on the cold call, there's like a massive amount of things that we could cover that's like this big and talk about. And I want to
yep.
immediately add context and like pick this little window of stuff to talk about that they're going to care about. So that's the concept of the priority drop, is how can I filter this conversation, put up some bumper guards, really focus it and make it very narrow, and also talk about something that they're working on.
And so what I like about this, Sandler has like a version of this where they basically are, folks that I talk to, they tend to say they have these types of problems, or if not that, this way, or if not that way. The way you've framed the priority drops is it always two and then opening up a third that's like, or is there something else so that you're capturing that information? Is that by design, or is there a magic number of more than two
Yeah.
initiatives? Is it always two and then or something else? Is that the framework?
Yeah. I like two or something else just because it's short and snappy. Gong has got some really interesting data around this too, around monologues and cold calls. And what they found is that cold calls with positive outcomes, they do have monologues in them that are like around 30, 35 seconds. So it's okay to monologue. But once I start to get past 30, 35 seconds, I mean, I'm just like talking at this person. And I find that when we have three, it can go on to 60 seconds or so.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I want to keep it around 30, 35
You,
seconds, keep it
if you
super
listen
short.
to the cold call live, the Sandler folks do, love those guys. They do the live cold calling show with my channel every week. It gets pretty long sometimes. Like, all right, like what's going on? But it's by design, right? The idea is to like really be different and try to hit on something. But two with and or something else to be more conversational feels pretty good. And if your advice of actually going in and getting feedback from the actual sales conversations and bringing that into the cold call, more often than not, people that you're serving want to know what other people are also focused on too.
Yep.
How do I relate to my peers? How do I measure up?
Mm.
So is there a way to present that where we're speaking with folks like you, or what was the phraseology used exactly? Because it's a little bit different
Yeah.
on priority drop.
Hey, in conversations with other VPs of support like yourself at companies like X and Y, I'm going to throw in some social proof right there. Or you could say in our work with heads of customer support at companies like A and B. So think about social proof that you can dump out. And I want to double click on what you said, Ryan, around people want to know what others are working on. That's called an insight. So you have insights to share. So it's at what I've heard this referred to as is a customer voice. I really like that. Like I'm going to speak through the lens of my customer.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak through what these people are focused on and what we help. This is a way for you to talk about what you do without saying we help so and so's with this and this and
Right.
that, without doing this like a long-winded elevator pitch.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a slight nuance, but it makes a big difference in terms of getting back to what we're dealing with right now. From the very
Yep.
beginning, interruptive communication. I don't know who you
Mhm.
are. Why are you calling me in the first place? You set some relevance, some context. Okay, this person took some time. Now you've got a shot. But instead of me just pitch slapping, great. Here's what we do specifically for you, which I don't really know yet. Instead, you're taking a step back and saying, here's other folks like you, and there's the initiatives. Like, is that on point or is there something else? And now you're back to like you're gonna get a yes on one of those, which you can dive deeper into, or something else, and you're gonna listen
Yep.
and determine is it aligned? It may or may not be. But now you're gathering information necessary to inform the next best action into the conversation. So this is
Yep.
this is awesome. I don't know, getting into the second part of this section here, but Jason, I know you have lots of content around this. I'm guessing you've probably shared some examples of this in the past. Maybe people can look them up if folks want to do a little bit more research on priority drops. I know you and I did a live show before too. We could probably dig up for
Yep.
show notes. But is there a resource center where folks could learn a little bit more if they want to dive deeper into? There you go. Already
Yeah,
in
I
the
just
chat.
dropped it in the chat.
There you
Open
go.
up
So
that
if
document. The first page has got like our best content on it for LinkedIn posts. There's a cold calling section in there specifically. Just poke around at some of that stuff. You could see some good examples.
amazing. All right. So again, if you have questions as well, keep chatting them in there. Tim will try to address those at the end of it. But now we want to transition into bringing on some folks on stage. If anyone wants to volunteer to walk us through how they're handling their cold calls today, and we'll go through some pitch feedback. We'll probably have time for 2 or 3 folks. Julie, welcome to the show. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Stockholm.
Stockholm.
Yes.
Wow. All right. What time is it over there? Is it like
It's 5:30.
okay. So
Yeah.
perfect time to be cold calling. What are you doing on a show? You should be making calls to the execs, right?
Yes.
Well, so to set some context for our feedback today, Julie, who do you serve? Who are you trying to reach out to? And what do you offer as an organization? Just to set some context for us in the audience, and then we'll go through a little bit of a role play.
Yep. So I'm a BDR team leader, and I mainly prospect enterprise companies everywhere in Europe, and we sell electronic signatures and authentication, which is a way to verify the identity of signatories.
Okay, perfect. And generally, who is your target? The actual individual that you might be reaching out
Yeah.
to for the purposes
It's
of the call today.
yeah. It's quite a large topic, I'd say, because we have dialogue with legal department, IT department, sales department. So yeah, it's detective work for me to find the right person. I would say.
Oh, okay. So, for the purposes of the exercise today, let's hone in on one that you might be struggling with. Which one? Which one of those audiences? You got us on the phone. Who generally would you like to try to practice with today? IT, legal.
Yeah, I like IT people usually. Yeah.
Okay. So we're IT, and you're going to talk to us about identification, electronic signatures. Fantastic.
Yes.
Right. We'll get
Yes.
into it. So, hey, this is Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Good afternoon. You're speaking to Julie, and I'm calling from Scrive.
Scrive.
Yes, SCRIVE. We are a company based in Stockholm, and we specialize in e-signing solution and authentication. I'm calling you because I would like to book a meeting with you. But first, let me give you a bit of context. We work with a lot of companies in your industry, and we help them to digitize their processes. So yeah, that's why I'm calling you. Would you have 3 slots in the coming days?
All right, let's stop there. Thank you,
Yeah.
Julie.
Woo!
Jason. So we know that this one isn't as live fire to stop, repeat. I don't know if you've been on those ones, Julie, but this is gonna be a little bit lower key. Just want to get through the messaging, and we'll go back through after some coaching. I'll give you another shot here. But how'd that feel? A little nervous?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah. It's a bit nerve-wracking making calls in front of everyone like this.
Yeah, lots of nerves. Not always. So, so Jason, what did you think of Julie's approach today?
So I think first off, love the tone, energy, personality comes through. All of that stuff is really, really good. So we definitely want to keep that up. I got a question for you. What is an IT person? What is an outcome that this person is trying to accomplish in their job, or a priority or goal initiative that they have, and then coupled with a problem that they tend to run into related to your solution?
I'd say compliance, security, and also the fact, I mean, the IT director or head of IT, he doesn't want like problems. So we need to make sure that buying our solution won't be a headache, and it will be a smooth process. And also, I'd say that um, they need to understand quickly that it's not going to change their life. Like, we have a list of integration, and we can integrate very easily to the existing systems.
Yeah. So one more question related to this. So if they're not using Scrive, what are they doing right now? Is it just a DocuSign type of situation? Like, what are they doing right now?
Especially after COVID, like most companies, they have a tool in place. It's very rare when people tells me like, yeah, no, we still have a manual process. We're a little bit old school. It's quite rare. So most of the prospect that I'm calling, they already have a tool in place. But you are mentioning DocuSign. Boo!
Yeah.
They are. Yes. Sorry.
So why do people switch to your tool then? What is not ideal for an IT person? What problems are created for this person if they're using a DocuSign instead of Scribe?
Yeah. Well, our company was built, so we are a European company built for the European market. So we have a legal expertise in the European market, and we had a lot of customers that went from DocuSign or Adobe Sign to Scribe because of those reasons. Because in the end, legal requirements are very important. So yeah, well, I'm just realizing that it's not really an IT topic now. It's like more a legal topic, but all of this stuff are linked.
Yeah, well, it's probably IT's job to execute on the things that legal needs and to make sure that they're using software that's compliant and all that kind of stuff, right? So the reason I ask you this is that part was kind of missing from the first part of your call. And what I worry about, do you get people saying we already have a solution when you make
all the
calls?
time. Yes.
Yeah, all the time, right? So it's because you're talking about the solution. So when you talk about solutions, I think about as a prospect, do I have one of these? And the answer in your case is going to be yes, every single time, probably.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't want to talk about the solution. I want to talk and I want to ease my way into that. Okay. So if we were to take that priority drop framework, I speak to a lot of IT folks and they tell me that one of the things that is really important to them is making sure the tools they use are compliant in the market, especially the European market. But what they run into with their current tools is that they're not really built for the European market. So they tended to run into problems like A and B. I'm really curious, which one of those have you run into? Or they tend to want to find solutions that to accomplish X and Y. Are either of these a priority for you right now? So I think you need to find a way to work some of that into your intro.
Okay.
So it's hey, Yuli, nice to meet you, or whatever you said at the beginning. Like your intro was fine. There was a pause there that I would recommend like leaving out at the very beginning. You said, hey, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. Don't pause there. Like keep the conversation going. Go straight into the reason for my call is I noticed that, you head up IT at so-and-so company. And typically in speaking with people like you, and then I'm going to go into like, what are they trying to accomplish and what kind of problems do they run into? And then just ask them if that's something that's top of mind for them right now.
Okay.
So what do you think that might sound like for you?
I need to find very precise arguments. What's going to be the best arguments for the IT people? Is that security? Is that compliance? Is that smooth process, etc.? Or is that features? Because, for example, I'm French, as you can hear, and in France we are less advanced. In Sweden, I feel that this is like a very modern society, and we have tools provided by the government, Bank ID. So it's an application on the phone, and we can authenticate ourselves to, I don't know, websites, etc. So we don't have this in France. We have this in Sweden. So I know that our company, Scrive, can really provide good tools for the European markets. So that features can also be important.
Yeah. So that's my feedback. I would figure out how can I work some of this stuff into the intro. I gave you a couple of examples, but folks like you are typically focused on compliance and security and making sure that their tools are built for the region that they work in so they can do XYZ or avoid this problem. Or they're just looking for signature tools and things like that are easier for their sales and legal team to do that is also compliant, with GDPR or whatever the other kind of stuff is. Get that part into your call first, and make the prospect ask you what you're like, where you're calling from and what your product does. Don't start with your product.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Is that helpful?
Yes. Thank you so much. Is this meeting recorded? Are we going to receive the link?
Yeah. Yes. You'll. So all of the previous shows are always on the same link that you signed up for. There's that on-demand library. So this will be available. And Tim will be emailing it out as well, I believe, after the show as well. So you can come back and get some notes from the show. Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get one more guest in here, and then we'll open up for Q&A if that works. Jason, that was great insight.
Awesome.
What I love about bringing on folks like you, just different perspectives on things. So Charles, welcome to the show. Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Seattle, Washington.
Seattle. Look at that.
Yeah. Another Washingtonian. I'm in Vancouver.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
There you go. I grew up in Spokane myself, so
crazy.
Down in California. So Charles, who are you calling in from? What company do you serve, and who do you serve within the organization? Sure. So what does your company do, and who do you serve?
Yeah, I work for I'm an SDR with Sierra Interactive, and we're a tech platform for real estate agents. So we provide a website that's integrated with the MLS. We also provide digital ad services using Google Ads and backend CRM. I think what makes Sierra stand out from our competitors is that we're the only real estate SaaS company that does all three. Most real estate agents will use several other platforms for these services, for these solutions, but we kind of are 3-in-1. So that's a kind of in a nutshell. And so the people that I'm reaching out to are usually the ideal size team of agents would be about five users on a team. So kind of smaller teams. I wouldn't be reaching out to enterprise teams. I think a smaller percentage of our clients are solo agents, but I think like the 5 to 20 would be like the kind of the ideal target audience for us.
Okay. So a team of 5 to 20 real estate agents, and you have an all-in-one marketing app, right? CRM, advertising, so pay-per-click advertising, and data. Is that what I heard? It's like
It would be
MLS data.
Yes, it would be like the agent's websites. If you went to, let's just say, like RyanRealty.com, they have their listings, maybe like a bio of their team, a page for their accolades, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Let's go through a section here, and then we'll give you some feedback. So, hey, This is Ryan. Ryan Real Estate. How can I help you?
Hey, Jason. I saw that you're a realtor with Keller Williams. This is Charles at CEO Interactive. Did you have 5 minutes for a quick chat about converting more leads to a closed deal?
I'm actually just running into a showing here. But how can I help?
Okay, I'll be real quick. I noticed you have a KV Core website. When I talk to other agents who are also using KV Core, they tell me it's not really delivering quality leads, and they're not really converting. Does that sound familiar?
I mean, I think they do okay. They have some leads.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, conversion's on me, right?
Partially. I mean, it is just, I think, the platform's tasked to deliver those leads. How many leads are you converting each month?
Oh, just a handful. Hey, I got to get going here, Charles. Do you want to mind send me some information? I got to get to this showing here.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to send you an email following this conversation. Do you think that you could improve the number of leads that you're converting each month? Because our website is fully integrated with the MLS, and it's built for SEO and lead generation in mind. So our digital ad team makes sure that our websites are consistent with Google's algorithm, and that's going to boost your rankings, and that's ultimately going to drive more traffic to your website. Would you be interested in learning a little bit more?
All right, let's stop there.
Okay.
Charles, how'd that feel?
A bit nervous. Yeah, but yeah, nervous.
Role plays are harder than real calls, in my opinion. Anyway, so again, I'm going to turn the mic over to Jason. You all hear my feedback every week. Let's see what Jason has for some feedback, probably some questions, and see if we can tune this up a little bit.
Is that how a typical call might go, Charles? Is there anything different that comes up when you're making these calls?
I will say so. I just started this company a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Prior to, I was actually calling warm leads, so it wasn't a cold call. So I don't have, my sample's too small to say, but I will say just I'm going to incorporate, I think you call it priority dropping into the script, because I noticed that I'll start talking to people and I feel like I'm just rambling, and they're just like, I got to go, and just kind of get off the phone. Mm-hmm. So I think just asking that question, it's a binary answer. It's yes or no, if they're interested or not. So, trying this out, I haven't done it yet, but I would say that the experience I've had so far, most people are just kind of like, who are you? Yeah. And then I got to go. I'm not interested, and kind of just hang up the phone.
Yeah. So let's unpack this a bit. So the intro, the first thing that I would do, let's reduce the friction of having a conversation with you. 5 minutes feels like an eternity to me. Don't ask for 5 minutes. Ask for a minute. Ask for 30 seconds. Right? So just reduce like the effort that this person has to put in. Hey, Charles, it's Jason with XYZ Company. You got a minute for me to tell you the reason for my call? You can let me know if you want to keep chatting. So you could just start simple like that. Permission-based opener. The next thing that you said, I love that you said, hey, I noticed you have a KV Core website. Okay. What I want you to talk about here before you go into the priority drop is anytime anyone here that has a tool that combines multiple tools into one, if someone's not using a tool like that, they are, to use a phrase that Bilal Batrawi, one of my friends in the space, he uses, cobbling together. So I'm going to say, hey, Charles, if you're like a lot of the real estate agents that we work with around the United States or Canada or whatever, North America, whatever you want to say, Or hey, if you're like a lot of the Keller Williams agents that we currently support, you might be cobbling together multiple tools like your KV Core website, your CRM in another place, and then running ads on Facebook and Google AdWords. Does that sound about like what you're doing? Just get some confirmation there. Yeah. Well, the reason I was giving you a call, Charles, is that in the real estate agents that we speak to, what they're trying to do is, and that's your priority drop, they're trying to get more qualified leads to come into their website or convert more of those leads or whatever it might be, right? Or, hey, they're running a big team and they need to make sure that these folks have a lot of leads. And on these websites, since it's disconnected from everything else, they don't really know like how much traffic they're getting, how effective it is at qualifying. And what we found is that when we can get all these tools in one place, like we've done for XYZ agents, it tends to produce this outcome. I'm really curious right now, like I want to ask some questions around things that they're not able to do. That's the hook part of the call that we didn't really get a chance to talk to a lot about today. But the beginning, I want you to permission-based opener, ask for less time. And then I want you to get into this cobbling together tools. Like you need to start the conversation there and start it a little higher. And speaking with real estate agents like you, they're trying to accomplish XYZ, but typically they're cobbling together multiple tools like the KV website that I saw, the social media ads I saw you're running, et cetera. Does that sound about right? And then go into your priorities from there.
Okay.
And it's amazing that you might already have this insight around or this information around the website they're using, right? I'm on your website right now. It looks like you're using such and such. That's your pattern interrupt that Jason talked about in the beginning. You start with there, but before you even, and then by the way, my name is Charles. I'm with such and such. Do you have a minute?
Yeah.
Right. So you can even start there with that information that shows that, hey, I'm sitting on your website right now. I'm not just calling down a list of real estate agents in the country. I'm actually on your website right now, and it looks like this is what you're using. By the way, my name is Charles. Do you have a minute? And then you can transition into that priority drop. Great opportunity to try to test out some of the things that Jason shared today. So Charles, thank you so much for being a volunteer here. Hopefully you got a little bit of nuggets, and we're going to open up for the Q&A. We only have about 12 minutes left, so I do want to open up for the Q&A for the rest of the group, but thanks for tuning in.
Go Hawks. Hawks, yeah.
Go Hawks. All right. So we only have like 12 minutes left. I do want to open up for live Q&A. Looks like JP, if you come around next time, you can join. We've got Start, Stop, Repeat in 2 weeks, and we'll have another show guest on. But I do want to open up for Q&A because there seems to be like a lot of questions coming in. And with Jason's knowledge, I'd love to get those questions answered. So Tim, if you want to pop up the questions as they come in, and if you're live still, you can chat those in, and Tim will give us the questions as they pop on. Maybe
you do Fred's first.
Oh, here we go. It's pinned. It's pinned right there.
Yeah.
What tonality do you use in the opener, and what pace? I feel like more energetic in sales I sound, the worse it is. Yeah, that's probably right, Fred.
Yeah.
Here we go. What are your thoughts, Jason?
I think with tonality, I think that people overthink this a lot, and they try to sound a certain way. So don't try to sound any kind of way first. Like try to start from a pretty neutral baseline. Don't be super excited to talk to this person because you don't even know who they are. You've never even met this person. So I just try to come in and just very neutral. I think the thing that you want to do is really slow down though.
Yes.
You probably want to talk about half as fast as you think that you should talk. I don't know about you, Ryan. I still, every call I make, my heart races as that phone's. You know, I have an Apple Watch now. I should probably just look at the heart rate. You know, I know it goes up a bit. I can feel my heart beating, you know?
So you'll know when someone answers.
One of the things you can do as the phone is ringing, just make sure to get a deep breath in. Dude, make sure you're breathing. I tend to, in situations like this or on calls, get short of breath because I'm not breathing, because my heart rate is elevated and I tend to talk faster. So that would be the first thing, is just be really mindful of the pace that you're talking. Hey, Ryan, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. You got a minute for me to tell you why I'm calling? And then you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. I'm going to come in really neutral. I'm not going to have upward inflections. I'm not going to really do a lot of downward just pretty neutral. And really, I want to enunciate. That's the biggest thing. Hey, it's Jason. I know you weren't expecting my call. Do you have a minute for me to tell you why I'm calling? Then you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. I want to really focus on enunciating the words. This goes back to the door-to-door days when I was selling house painting services.
Yep.
Person opens the door and it's like, hey, I'm with XYZ company and I came by your house because we're going to be painting homes in your neighborhood this summer. Like painting, we really enunciate, because people are just like, it's like Charlie Brown kind of situation. There's just like a lot of noise coming, like really enunciate. So if I have any tips for tonality, talk about it half as fast as you think that you should talk and really enunciate the words in your opener and practice. I think you might have said this, might have seen you or someone else, but the first part of the call, like your opener, should be really scripted. Should be
really
scripted.
very, very scripted. Yeah.
It should be like the same exact thing every single time you call someone like that. It should be extremely scripted. So I don't want to have to think about what I'm saying.
That's right.
In the first part of the call.
That's right. Write it down and
Yep.
practice the heck out of it. And for Jason's response, everyone that's been here before is spot on to what I'd recommend. It's going to feel weird at first, but try to talk almost at half pace. And that's going to really help you get through that intro, calm down, get through that intro, and you will start to get signals on, should you speed up? Should you get a little bit more hyped, or should you even slow down further? A little more energy, a little less energy. All of those things will come out as the conversation begins. Remember, this is interruptive communication. Yeah. Just like in the door-to-door, when someone opens, is this person here to rob me, or what is this all about? It's the same thing. Is this a scam call? Like, what is this an emergency?
Yeah.
The Charlie Brown is perfect. I'm gonna start giving you credit for that. Won't Jason says the won't Charlie Brown. That's what's happening. They're not hearing you.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a way to help them understand who the heck you are, why you're calling, and all the things that we shared today. But it does start around pace, probably more than anything else. Pace is very, very important. And then tonality will change based on the prospect. That's when the mirroring should come in a bit. And there's upticks and downticks, but enunciation is really important too. Yeah. And as you're scripting your intro, make sure that it is you, to your point. Like, don't try to sound a kind of way, as Jason said. Like that's really important. If it's not natural, it's going to sound like a robot. It's not going to come off normal, and you're not going to get past hello. And so if you're looking at the data and you're in that average of 80 seconds or less, you're probably having some problems here, and try to slow down, and that will actually help you get through more of those conversations into the actual intent or purpose of the call. Great question.
I got one more, actually, just quick thing to add to that. Smile. This is a personal preference. Yeah. Like what we had in call centers, we'd have a little pocket mirror up on the cubicle, and the goal is to see your teeth while you're talking. I want the prospect to see my dimples through the phone. You know what I mean? So like smile, if that's your style, that can be super helpful too. I want to be really hard to say no to. And it's kind of hard in person. If someone approaches you really nicely and has a big smile on their face, it's kind of hard to be an asshole to that person. You know what I mean? So like make it really hard to be mean to you or to say no to you. That's kind of the idea here.
Yeah, that's not a bad mindset. All right, next one. Can you put it in an email for me? What's the best way to get around this?
Yeah, so objections, I think through a 3-part framework, it's empathize, validate, offer. So before you handle the objection, just acknowledge what you heard. So, hey, sounds like you want to get a better idea of what this is before you commit to a meeting. No problem. I'm happy to send you an email, but before I do that, I'm really curious, is this going to be something that you're going to be looking at? Is it going to be something you're going to want to forward to your team? Get an idea of who it's going to be sent to. And then I'm just going to ask a couple questions there to figure out like what I could put in that email. Hey, Ryan, you mentioned that reducing cost to serve was a focus for you. Is there anything specific that you want to see around how other companies are using digital assets to reduce the cost to serve and get people to call less into the contact center? Yeah, we're looking to do this, blah, blah. See if you can do some light questioning there and get a few tidbits from the prospect. And then we're going to circle back and just ask for the meeting one more time. So Ryan, can I make a crazy suggestion? Yeah. What's up? All of those things are exactly challenges that we've heard from companies like A and B. Would it be a terrible idea if we just set aside 10 or 15 minutes? I could run you through some of those stuff, share some of the insights. And if at that point you don't want to talk to me anymore, totally fair. But I think there's really something here for you. Do you have your calendar handy? I'm going to go in and ask for the meeting again. We all know here, we've been doing this long enough to know that when someone says, can you send me an email, and you send them the perfect email, the response rate is like near zero on that. So let them know that you are willing to comply, get a few more questions in, and then ask for the meeting.
And so context matters around when this is coming up, right? So can you put that in email? Did they say that in the very, very beginning before you even got past hello, or was this after you've gone through some two-way dialogue, etc.? So what Jason just shared is spot on. And the most important thing here is to make sure you do follow up. So ask for the meeting, even if you don't get it, still follow up. Getting that email out and then following up. Follow-ups have about, I don't know, 2 or 3x increase in conversion. So I wouldn't use it as an objection. There's no way around it. Sometimes it's an actual request. And so if you follow some of the tactics that Jason just shared, but then also make sure to follow up. And when I mean follow up, like within a day or two, that's when you're going to see that compound effort from phone, email, phone pay off, even if you can't book it on that first conversation. But everything else Jason shared is spot on. It does matter when they ask that question, right? If it's in the very, very beginning, it's likely an objection or a brush off, and you absolutely need to get into what Jason already mentioned. Now, if you've already gathered some of that information, maybe you can just recap. Say, great, so from what you've shared with me today, I'll put into this, this, and this. Does that sound fair? Or would there be anything else you'd like to see? And is there anyone else that's going to see it? Right? That's another way to recap that. So it depends on when that question was asked in the conversation. How do you manage prospects who keep cutting you off in the cold call?
Yeah.
Interesting.
This is to your point, Ryan, earlier. Where this happens is super important. So, because someone else asked, if someone cuts me off and says not interested, it's the same kind of thing. If the prospect cuts me off in the very beginning of a call, there's something wrong with my intro. So try some of the stuff we talked about before. Try starting with something relevant and doing a permission-based opener, and get the prospect to hand you the mic. That's the whole point of the permission-based opener. They're handing you the mic, and you can just you have a space right there where you can explain the reason for your call. Now, if I'm getting a little bit further into the call, when you say the prospect is cutting you off, getting cut off is not always a bad thing. If the prospect's engaged and they're giving you good insights, I've just got to let them talk. Yep. But if they're cutting you off with objections, I'm always going to come from the place of how do I prevent some of these objections from happening? So the way that I prevent most of these objections is I got to come in as a peer and demonstrate business acumen. And I do that through the priority drop. I speak with lots of people like you at these companies, and they tell me that they're focused on these things. If you nail that part, you're going to get very few objections where it's like not interested, not right now, I'm about to step into a meeting, all that kind of stuff. If you nail that part, you still might get we already have a solution for this and all those kind of stuff. But if someone keeps cutting you off, I think it depends on what they're cutting you off with. If you're getting information from them, let them talk. And if you're getting cut off at the beginning, make sure that you're applying the principles that we talked about earlier today.
Yeah, spot on. Sometimes it might be targeting as well. So, if you're getting cut off and you are, it's not relevant, you're getting shut down, you may want to rethink who you're selling into. If everything else has been shared, and it's like, man, feels like, when I speak with certain people, it's working, but other people, it's not. I mean, look at the actual people. And that's where you can start to do some stuff in the beginning where you drop in that relevance piece that Jason shared. I'm speaking with specific titles like sales development leaders, if that was an example. And sometimes titles are a little bit obscured. So, I mean, sales development leaders is a little bit different. Customer support leaders would be a little bit different. Like someone might have like a customer support director of customer support, and you think that that's a director of customer support, but you call them and you're like, hey, I speak with customer support leaders, and like, I'm not a leader, I'm actually just a rep. Well, that might be the reason why you're getting cut off, is it's not going to be relevant for them. They don't really deal with any of this stuff. So also think about list too. And that's where data is going to drive a lot of these potential challenges that are coming up. Sometimes it's not just what you're saying, it's also who you're saying it to. So keep aware of the target message component when you're thinking about that. All right, we probably have time. No, we do not. That was the last question. 20 seconds left. Jason, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. You dropped some knowledge today. If folks want to reach out to you, I know you already shared a link, which is awesome, but how could people reach out to learn a little bit more about what you're doing and how you're helping others like everyone here
Yeah.
today?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I post content every day on outbound and selling, and then outboundsquad.com would be a good place. So if you're a rep and you're an SDR looking to become an AE, or maybe an AE that's in your first couple of years and looking to just really build confidence and the foundation of sales skills, you're going to find lots of great content there. And then if you're a company or sales leader or sales team that wants your team to do some of the stuff that we talked about today, we have programs like that as well. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or at outboundsquad.com, which I dropped into the link, and would love to help you out, whether that's with free stuff or let you know about our courses and programs and that sort of stuff. So Ryan and the Cognism crew, appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. This is awesome. And we'll see you all in 2 weeks for another Start, Stop, Repeat. So if you like to volunteer, make sure to get with Tim sooner rather than later so you can bump your way up to the beginning of the line for the next session.